So one of the most important things to consider when someone is impacted by a gambling problem, which is a behavioral addiction and not a substance addiction, is that there are some very, very distinct differences in both their experience and the path to their recovery. And so their experience is oftentimes that they've been far more personally impacted. And an example of this might be that their savings account has been compromised, or a loan has been taken out in their name, or some sort of financial devastation has impacted them, which oftentimes doesn't occur with a substance abuse addiction.
There can be job-related legal situations, which is very common, but there can also be other kinds of behavior that have gotten the client in trouble with the law, and their families may or may not know about it. So their families are often shocked to find out how much damage has been done legally.
So examples of taking more than a passive, detached, loving approach might be to check your own credit score, to check and see whether or not any loans have been taken out in your name, to secure passwords to your bank accounts, and make sure that you have the bandwidth to take care of some of the financial needs that your family has, independent of what the person who's been impacted directly by the gambling disorder is telling you, to really check out and what we call verify the truth. I mean, the truth with verification is a whole lot more than just trusting without verification. So, when your finances have been impacted and you're struggling just to make ends meet, or to make sure that your home is secure and your finances are secure, trust with verification by looking at your credit scores and how your bank and monies are secured is very important. So, a gambling disorder impacts a wide range of people, and it also may be a larger and wider range of people than those impacted by somebody with a substance use disorder. And so what we might see is that someone's boss is, or their business is in some way related. Their career is in a larger way related, not impacted, not just because somebody does or does not show up at work, but because they may have taken funds or compromised information, or be engaged in activities online that would be deemed inappropriate in a business setting.
But for the family member, their journey has just started, because it can be years before they are out of the financial jungle. So we see probably more rage, probably more just anger and crisis. And I think at the front end, that sort of intense anger, frustration, and sadness needs to be addressed with the family members. But at the same time, there has to be this very left brain cognitive kind of plan put in place to help the family member survive over time. And then there's the relationship. So the relationship is certainly damaged for almost everybody. How do you win back trust?
So oftentimes family members, when they're first realizing that there's a gambling problem, are really, really either in shock or angry or in crisis. And the most important thing to do is to really address the crisis at hand and to what I call stop the bleeding. It's to really find a method that works within this family system, considering culture and the age of the gambler and a lot of other various factors to stop the problem. from impacting family members. So that might be, again, changing passwords to your accounts, verifying the truth of what you're hearing as a rationale for either why someone has let's say, a post office box and is having all of their mail delivered there, or has significant financial challenges, or hasn't attended to paying a mortgage or keeping people safe. And so these original or initial strategies really are very much based on the specific and unique situation of a particular family that's been impacted.
I think it's really important to have that balance of individual counseling for family members and group counseling. And of course, there'll be family counseling, but having those different ways of exploring it and hearing what others in their situation or similar situation have done is really powerful. And the 12-step programs are excellent. Some of the materials are really excellent in those programs.
But a typical strategy, when you're dealing with somebody who might have a financial dilemma, and in a typical counseling might be to consolidate debt. Go to credit counseling. That would be a strong and pretty appropriate recommendation. With compulsive gambling, that's not necessarily very helpful, because if we consolidate the debt, especially if we do that too quickly, it just provides another option for somebody to create more debt and not to understand and really heal the relationship that person has with an instant access to fresh cash or spending again. So that's one. Legally, in our country, we have community property law and we have non-community property law, and in community property law, so each state is either a community property state or a non-community property state, and I believe 10 of the states in our country are community property states. What that means legally is that family members can be held liable in a community property state for both the debt, the full debt, and a civil iteration of a criminal problem related to the addiction. So if my spouse, for instance, did something criminal related to his gambling, I could be held civilly responsible for that. And if there were financial issues in a community property state, Washington State is one, Arizona is one, a lot of the Western seaboard is filled with community property states. I know Wisconsin is one as well. I would be held liable for all of that debt, not just half of that debt, but if my spouse couldn't take care of it, even if I knew absolutely nothing about it, I could be held liable for all of it. I just want to share that there is hope. There is hope for people who have been impacted by a gambling disorder. And that becomes a really important message when you start thinking about the fact that gambling is one of those disorders where as soon as somebody decides to stop gambling, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden things are going to get better really easily. Gambling, the impact of gambling or the consequences of the gambling problem may continue to unravel for long periods of time. The financial impact may unravel for a long period of time. The credit issues may unravel for a long period of time. The criminal consequences that may not come to fruition or are sitting out there may not unravel or reveal themselves for a long period of time. So preparing and understanding and being hopeful and having some sort of inspirational and hopeful platform as you move into and stay in recovery and create community in your recovery is so important, so helpful.